Are you looking to invest in the Perth property market and want to use a local buyer's agent to help you secure your next investment? Mitch and Sam are the co-founders of SJR Property Group, a buyer's agency based in Perth that specialise in helping investors build property portfolios that outperform the market. Check out www.sjrpropertygroup.com.au to book in a free discovery call and chat with a local buyer's agent today.
This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a very special episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. I'm Grace Ormsby, and every year, you probably know by now, we do like to get the chance to chat to the president of the Real Estate Institute of Australia to be talking through everything really from a top-down perspective of what is going on in property, both within the real estate industry and broader within the Australian property landscape. It is an absolute pleasure to be chatting to Leanne Pilkington. Thank you so much for taking the time, Leanne. How are you?
Absolute pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity. Very happy to be here.
Congratulations on being named president of the Real Estate Institute of Australia. Obviously, it's the culmination. You've been working with the Institute for a few years now. You've also had roles in the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales too. Yep. So it's probably not completely new, the space to you and all of that.
No, it's not new, but it's quite different being president of the Australian Institute versus New South Wales. So yeah, you're dealing with different issues. You're dealing with different people. You're dealing with the presidents and CEOs of all of the institutes around the country. So it's quite a different dynamic, which I wasn't expecting.
What does it involve? Because we were talking off air, and not only are you president of the Institute, you're also CEO of Lang & Simmons,
yep,
a major real estate network. You have roles with charities. You are on boards. Talk us through what your life looks like.
Well, I hate to say that I'm busy because everybody's busy, right? And the challenge for me is wearing so many hats. It is quite difficult to make sure you're not dropping the ball on certain things. So I do work pretty long hours. I work every weekend pretty much. And so it's not for everybody. People would say to me, that's no work-life balance, but I love it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
And I know that you love it. You can tell just the way you talk about the industry and the interest that you take in what is going on. And I do feel like it's a really interesting point in time for property, Leanne. As much as being in the real estate and property investment sector, there's always plenty to talk about. But I feel like in the last couple of years, we've really seen the elevation of property and real estate on that national conversation stage.
Yeah, it's on the news every single night. We had a political briefing just last week at the REIA, and we've got a lot of elections across the country and obviously federally coming up in the next 12 months or so. And it is high on the agenda for every single government around the country. So that does make it very topical, and it makes the REIA's work even more important. But it's very frustrating that there are still people out there talking about, trying to rent freezes and negative gearing and all of that sort of thing, when clearly we need more investment, not less.
And I want to talk to some of the latest analysis and data in a little while. But before we do get there, I'm curious your thoughts on, yes, we've suddenly is really not the right word to use, but found ourselves in a housing crisis and a rental crisis. And that's obviously the culmination of a lot of factors over a long period of time.
Sure.
Have you seen that coming? Or did COVID accelerate what was already kind of happening? Like, how does it look from your perspective?
Yes, because certainly COVID accelerated everything. I think COVID changed so much of our world and our outlooks and our expectations. It's been quite incredible to see how it's impacted people even all these years later. And it's still top of mind. It's interesting because I was president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales during COVID, and Tim McGibbon and I were on, we would do a Facebook Live every single day, 7 days a week for that period of time. And I still, years later, have people coming up to me every time I'm at an event, which is every week. Somebody that I've not met before will come up and thank me and say you don't realise how important what you did was to us. And that was years ago now. So for it still to be so top of mind, I think is a reflection of the impact that it had on so many people and continues to.
So just quickly before we do go to a break, what are some of the biggest issues that you're seeing now when it does come? Because you mentioned the investment piece, the need for more investment, and that is obviously a massive, massive priority, having seen what the REIA has been talking through for a while now. Yeah, what are some of the things that you're really pushing for at the moment and wanting to see?
Well, we're seeing investors leaving the market around the country for a variety of reasons, and that sort of started during COVID. As a result, there is lack of supply. There's more demand and less supply. That obviously puts upward pressure on prices. The government incentivising first home buyers, but they're not incentivising first-time investors. So we think that rentvestors, there's a lot of people who particularly, they want to live in the inner city, for example, but can't afford to buy there. But they can afford to buy regionally or somewhere else. So why not incentivise them to provide housing for somebody else? It makes no sense to me. So that's something that we think could make a difference really quickly. The government have got plans in place which are great, but they're all very long term and we don't even know if they're going to achieve those housing targets, right? But we could incentivise rentvestors literally tomorrow if we choose to.
There you go. And that comes into the other conversations and I guess that we're seeing around stamp duty, land tax, all of those issues that are very much being debated right now, as you said, because of all these state elections that are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stamp duty is a whole different issue. We've done some analysis at REIA that would positively impact supply. To get rid of stamp duty would positively impact supply by 4%, which is a significant amount of property around the country. And state governments are just so addicted to the property taxes, and what they don't understand is alleviating some of that pressure will mean people will transact more frequently. And yes, I get into trouble for saying things like that because that's good for real estate agents, but it's good for the economy because when people buy and sell property, it's not just real estate agents that are working. It's conveyancers, it's solicitors, it's photographers, it's white goods, it's so many different things. And I just think that we need to take a look at the taxation system across the board.
And how are those conversations that you are having with the state bodies around some of these conversations? Do they have a positive outlook? Are they concerned?
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes they are. The Prime Minister was absolutely thrilled at our stand with the Greens on rent freezes, for example. He actually came up to Hayden Groves, the previous REIA president, at a function and said, "Hey, mate, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Keep it up." And we're like, wow, my goodness, the Prime Minister actually knows who we are. So that's always nice to see. So those conversations, they vary depending on the government and, on the minister that we need to deal with because we're dealing across a few different ministries as well, of course.
Yeah, like just the list of people that you probably want to be getting in front of all the time is quite large, especially given this national conversation, as we've already mentioned.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But our CEO at REIA, Anna, has got great connections with government. So it's been really lovely to see that we're welcome into the conversation. They are seeking out our opinion. They're seeking out our reports. And that's a big change. That's fantastic to see.
Yeah, I was going to say, has that always happened?
No, it's definitely improved in the last probably 3 or 4 years. And I think that's a combination of us being really focused on where we can actually help government and housing becoming the absolute focus for every government around the country.
On that topic of housing becoming that conversation, one last question here before we do go to a break. It's clearly now being very much considered in the broader economic outlook for the country, property and real estate and what is going on in this space.
Yep.
Has that always been the case that it has been scrutinised so closely by the people that are, looking so broadly at what is going on?
No, I don't think so. Certainly, stamp duty has been a topic ongoing. Negative gearing has been a topic ongoing. But housing more broadly, no. And that's part of the problem, right? Because the government, there's not enough social and affordable housing being built. And that problem started a long time ago. And it's now all coming to roost all at the same time. And there's no quick fix.
So it is really just that great thing then that it is finally coming to light, even though it's not for the greatest of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think once you shine the light on a problem, answers start to come from various sources, and that's what should be happening now.
We're going to go to a break now, but don't go away, anyone. Plenty more still to come from Leanne Pilkington.
Are you looking to invest for a big return, but are unsure which suburb is up and coming and guaranteed to give you the most bang for your buck? Smart Property Investment and Pure Property Investment have unveiled the Fast 50 report for 2025, identifying the suburbs backed by research that are giving investors the highest returns. Don't make any investing decisions until you read the free report. Visit smartpropertyinvestment.com.au to download the report.
Welcome back to this very special conversation with the president of the Real Estate Institute of Australia, Leanne Pilkington. Leanne, as I said from the outset of this episode, it is always great to chat with you about what is going on. And one thing that has obviously come to light recently, and we mentioned it just before the break, is the lack of social and affordable housing that's now, it's probably always been recognised as a little bit of an issue, but not really from the perspective of the real estate industry itself. Like, real estate doesn't necessarily deal with social and affordable housing all the time.
No.
That's not within their main purview.
No, it's not.
Clearly now it's becoming very much more top of mind. How has that change kind of been taken by the industry and people such as yourself?
Well, I mean, the industry in general still doesn't really deal with it, but it's become a conversation around the REIA board table because it just has to be. There's a lot of conversations around build to rent, but unfortunately, those projects, it's hard to make them work in the conditions that we've got right now because building materials are going up in price consistently. It's really hard to get labourers to actually do the work. So it's not easy to make those developments stack up for the actual developer. And a lot of the build to rent projects are actually more expensive. So that's not going to solve this problem. So, yeah, there's a lot of conversations that need to be had. You know, there's also conversations around superannuation funds buying affordable housing, but superannuation, because I am a trustee on the REI Super Board, as a trustee, we have to make sure that we are acting in the members' best financial interest. And if we can get 9 or 10% return in other investments, which is what we do, it's very hard to justify that 3 or 4% return in real estate is in the best financial interest of our members. So that's a problem for government to solve. And there are conversations being had in that space right now.
And I know there are investors out there that are concerned by the advent of build to rent or all this private development coming in. But the reality is that's not where they should be, I guess, worried right now.
No, I agree. Certainly there are some developments that are happening, but it's not going to be a massive segment of the market, certainly at this point in time.
And going, I guess, a little bit more into what we saw at the back end of last year, Real Estate Institute has obviously just released its Real Estate Market Facts, which gives a great overview of the market. We're at December 2023, which was quite an interesting year, I want to say. We saw a lot of decisions, cash rate decisions, I think probably had the most impact on the market. But
Grace, I've been in real estate for 40 years. I know that's horrifying to even think about that, but I have never seen a time where interest rates are going up and prices are going up at the same time. That just doesn't happen.
No.
It was just nuts. Obviously, during COVID, the other thing during COVID that I've never seen before is all of the markets were experiencing the same conditions at the same time, and that's really unusual. So last year, that's not the case. We had some markets going up and other markets like Darwin fell. The median house price fell by 5.1% last year in Darwin. Melbourne fell by 2.2%. Pretty much all the other markets were actually up. But it's interesting now that everywhere is not seeing the same conditions, because if you go to Perth, for example, they were up by 7.5%.
Yeah, it's insane. And I feel like it does speak to definitely a post-COVID shift away from when we did see those COVID conditions. And really, I guess it was that exodus out of potentially Sydney and Melbourne, the big city centres. People could remote work. They were looking more towards lifestyle. But we've seen a backwards shift, but still not really. We've gone back to 2, 3, 4 market cycles, really, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Country?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes my job much harder than it was before COVID. Can I just say that?
Yeah. I mean, as you said, you probably couldn't predict the COVID conditions, but then we got to a point where you went, okay, this is the new normal. And then it just shifted completely again and became unpredictable again.
Yeah, it's really nuts. There's not enough stock. I think almost every market would tell you there's not enough stock on the market. And one of the challenges, we've already talked about, is stamp duty. People are living in their homes much longer than they used to, and they're choosing to renovate instead of sell because stamp duty is so expensive. So, I don't know. I wish I had all the answers, but I sure don't.
I mean, don't we all? And we probably wouldn't even have the issue if there was an answer that could, solve this problem straight away.
Yeah.
Are you seeing anything on the horizon that will look to remedy some of those things?
Not short term. Really not short term. We need more supply. And we've been saying that for a number of years now. And I know governments are trying to address that in a few different ways, but they're all long-term situations, unfortunately.
So I guess bringing it back then to the idea of the rent vesting and the ability to change some of those settings there today and make a difference. Is there anything else where you go, if this actually were to change it, and I guess bearing in mind, again, we're in that election year, things could shift. What would be some of those more favourable things that would also help?
And there's not that many that can shift things quickly, and it's incentivising private investors to come back into the market. And I know that there's no appetite to be incentivising people that already own a few properties, but we do know the majority of investors only own one property, and those are the people that potentially can buy another property. I've got a lot of friends that have got kids in their early 20s. They would absolutely help fund their kids into buying property if they could be a first-time investor. And so I honestly think that is the best place to start.
Good point. Hopefully we see some of that kind of go out into the world. So looking ahead then, if we can look at sort of a bit of, crystal ball gazing, we don't have the answers. We don't know what's necessarily going to happen, but what are your expectations, firstly, for the next 12 months and then sort of longer term beyond that, whether good, bad or ugly?
I don't think there's going to be too much change to the rental situation in the short term. We've got rental vacancy rates in some parts of the country below 1%, which is just horrifying. It really, needs to be sort of 2 or 3% for it to be an okay market. I just don't see that changing anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And so many of the challenges that the government have, we've got, they're sort of slowing down migration because there's nowhere for them to live, but then that slows down our ability to build more property. So that's really, that's difficult. There's no easy solution for any of this, Grace. It's all going to take time, and I think things potentially could get worse before they get better.
That is not exactly what many people would be wanting to hear.
That.
No, but it's the truth, and that is the importance of being informed, knowing what is going on, and the fact that really, I guess, even though there may not be the incentives out there for private investment as well, the low vacancy rates, there are still factors that we'll be seeing people wanting to go out and invest, and I do think that is a silver lining. May still not be the right word to use there, but
you're absolutely right. The low vacancy rates and higher rentals does mean that investment is looking more attractive for investors. I've actually just in the middle of purchasing an investment property for myself right now for some of those reasons. So hopefully there'll be a few more people that do that.
We'll have to get you on a Smart Property Investment show where you talk through your property portfolio.
Sure. It's not that extensive.
No, but yeah.
I'm not one of these people that has dozens of properties.
But, there is a need for people to be, putting private investment in at this point and easing some of that rental concern that we are seeing the country over. We're going to take another break there. We'll be back in just a moment to talk through some more exciting things with Leanne Pilkington. See you on the other side.
G'day listeners, Sammy Gordon here from Australian Property Scout. If you're loving all the property investment content over here at SBI, you will love the Scouting Australia podcast. Hosted by myself alongside my good mate and experienced investor Jimmy Ibrahim, we unpack everything from real investor stories, mindset hacks, and a massive amount of property investment strategies and much, much more. Check us out over at the Scouting Australia podcast and take your investing to a new level.
Welcome back to this very special conversation. We are joined by Leanne Pilkington, who is not only REIA president, but she is the CEO of Lang & Simmons, who has been doing some pretty amazing stuff of late, Leanne.
It's been a joy, if I'm completely honest. As you know, we won the REB Major Network of the Year for the second time in a row. To say I was shocked and thrilled is an absolute understatement. We only entered for the first time last year. And I was thrilled that I felt we had a good enough story to enter, because I'd never felt that way before. And I've been with Lang & Simmons this is 29 years for me this year at Lang & Simmons. So just to have a story that I thought was good enough to have a crack really meant the world to me last year. And then to win it last year and to win it again this year is just, I can't even tell you.
I loved, and you said it yourself, you're not often speechless, but you were speechless.
No, really. But I really was. I was not expecting it. I didn't even invite my shareholders to the event because it's like, there's no way we're going to win back to back. And of course we did. And not only did we win that, we won Innovator of the Year for the brand. And Amy Young from Lang & Simmons Young Property down in Avalon also won the Individual Innovator of the Year. So it was a very fun night for Lang & Simmons, can I tell you?
Bet. Probably a few sore heads the next morning, the next afternoon, the next week. I mean, kudos to you for everything that you have done. We were talking off air about how it's been something that you've been wanting to enact within the brand for a long time. Yep. What are some of those things that have, I guess, really set you apart and been the things that you've really wanted to trickle down throughout the organisation over the last little while?
So franchising has changed massively in the nearly 30 years that I've been involved, and franchisors have had to change to make sure they're still relevant. And so whenever I see a pain point in a business, that's when it's up to us to build a system, a process, a service that takes away that pain for our business owners. And so we've got, internal people and culture, so we can recruit for all levels of business. We've got internal property management. We can run people's property management portfolios for them. And we're not dictatorial. So if somebody wants us to do this much, we'll do this much. Or they want us to do all of it, we'll do all of it. We just work out whatever is appropriate for that business. We do the back-end support for agents. A lot of things that we're doing now are things that other brands have started to implement. But I think the difference with us is none of my corporate team are there because it's a job. My corporate team absolutely love what they do, and they've got such great relationships with our business owners and our teams. We did an NPS survey about Lang & Simmons being a brand to belong to, and it came in at 82 or 83, which is
very high.
Right? It's massively high because NPS, it goes from minus 100 to plus 100. And I jokingly said to the team, I'm never doing that again. I'm going to live on that number forever, because it was such a proud moment for me, for people to be that passionate about our brand. It really means the world.
So nice to hear. You alluded to the evolution of real estate and the changes that you've seen over the years. I'm guessing that's for better, the way that you're talking about it, or is it not?
Look,
how do you see it having changed? Because it has. It's very fundamentally a very different profession, sector than it was many years ago.
It is. It's interesting when in some ways it hasn't changed at all. So what's interesting with real estate is that you can still have the mum and dad corner store kind of business that doesn't have a lot of market shares but has got a reasonable rent roll, and they survive on that. But there are more and more big businesses coming in and sort of taking over the smaller businesses. We've got an ageing population of business owners. So a lot of them are going to be looking to exit in the next 5 years. So I think that continual change is going to happen. I get frustrated. There's a lot of people out there who are about doing great things in the community, about helping people, solving the problems of their customers. But there are others who are more transactional, and it's all about the GCI and, hey, how good am I? And I don't think that does any favours for the individuals or for the industry. There's only so much that individuals can do about that. We've got to, I guess, work together as an industry and shine the light on inappropriate behaviour wherever we can. And I do it. Doesn't make me popular, but I do it. I continue to do it. And I have people who around me who are also passionate about it, and we communicate with our regulator often about things that are just not right that are happening out there. So, yeah, it's a shame because it's a few people that really tarnish the reputation and the image of the rest of us who do such an incredible job, because you'll never see more generous people in the world than real estate agents, right? They sponsor all of the local schools and events and sporting teams, and they just get so involved in their local communities. But yeah, that would be my wish, is for everyone to shine the light on the things that aren't being done the way they should be, so that we can really improve it for everybody.
That is a really good note, I think, both for the sector itself and the people who are employing the services of the real estate sector. Yeah. Can I get you to run through perhaps some green flags and some red flags for people out there to, if they're either looking for an agent or they're thinking about their own services, how they want to be approached within the community, that give people some ideas of what looks good and what doesn't look so good? Sorry, putting you on the spot here.
You are putting me on the spot. That's okay. I'm really big on reference checking. So if I'm employing somebody, I would never not call around and speak to other people that have worked with them before. And I don't think a lot of people do that before they choose their real estate agent. They look around and go, oh, there's lots of signs out. They must be good. But call some people and have that conversation and ask about how the experience has been, because let's be honest, we are dealing with people at their most stressed. People are often not buying and selling real estate for happy reasons. There's death, divorce, debt. There's, losing jobs. There's all kinds of things that happen that aren't great. So as agents, we need to be able to deal with people at their most stressed, and that's not easy. So I definitely would do some research, make some phone calls, and just see how their experiences have been. I would have a look at the results. I'd have a look at what people are quoting prior to auction and what properties sell for afterwards, because, as we know, vendors think their properties are worth more than anybody else's, and we get that. Even agents with their own properties think the same way. Some agents will tell you what you want to hear instead of what you need to hear, because they know if they don't, they're going to lose the listing to somebody else. So you need to really dig into those kind of questions before you take advice from whichever agent you choose.
Some really good food for thought there, some best practice, some tips really for both sides of the spectrum, for people, the consumers, and for the industry itself. Leanne, thank you so much for imparting your wisdom, shining a light on what is going on, both at the REIA and within the Lang & Simmons business. It's always so wonderful to chat, and I'm sure we'll be having a few more conversations over the year to come too.
I'm sure we will. Thanks so much. Always great to catch up.
To everyone who is listening along, we hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. Make sure to like or review us on whatever platform that you do listen to your podcasts on. And if you have any questions, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Use the same email if you think you might make for a good guest on an upcoming episode. We would love to hear from you. And as always, make sure you're staying up to date with all the latest on our website, as well as social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Until next time, stay safe and well wherever you are listening from. Bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Feeling trapped by rising interest payments? Escape from mortgage prison with expert refinancing assistance from Finny. We have helped hundreds of borrowers break free from higher loan repayments by finding a more suitable loan. Our expert team can quickly assess your situation, and if there's a better lender available, we'll find it fast. Don't delay. Call today. Speak to a Finny mortgage specialist on 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at www.finny.com.au.